If you talk to yourself every day, people might think you're a little strange. Maybe you've caught yourself doing it and wondered if something's wrong with you. But here's what most people never hear. Psychology doesn't call this weakness. It calls it a sign of a highly developed mind. People who regularly talk to themselves don't process the world the same way others do. While most people stay trapped in silent confusion, you've learned to think out loud, and that gives you abilities most people never develop. If this sounds familiar, there's a strong chance you have several rare psychological traits that quietly set you apart. But there's also one way this strength can turn into a trap, and we'll get to that. When you talk to yourself, you're not just thinking. You're observing your own thoughts from the outside. Psychology shows that verbalizing your inner experience creates distance between you and your emotions. Instead of being overwhelmed by how you feel, you analyze it. You don't just feel upset. You ask yourself why you're really upset. You don't just feel anxious. You question what's actually bothering you. That simple act of speaking turns emotional chaos into clarity. Most people get lost inside their thoughts. You navigate yours. And what most people don't realize is that this is the same skill many people spend years in therapy trying to develop. This is where people misunderstand self-talk. They assume it means you're stuck in your head, but in reality, it often means you're stepping out of it. When you talk to yourself, you activate multiple areas of the brain at once. Research shows this improves focus, reasoning, and problem solving. When you face a difficult decision, you don't just feel confused. You talk it through. You ask yourself, what happens if you choose one option? What the worst-case scenario really is? And what fear is actually driving your hesitation? You're essentially guiding yourself the way a mentor would. That's not overthinking. That's strategic thinking. And it's why you often find solutions others can't see. What makes this even more powerful is how it affects you under pressure. When stress hits, most people either shut down or explode. But if you talk to yourself, you've built an internal system for calming your nervous system. You might quietly say things like, slow down, breathe, or one step at a time. Psychology calls this self-distancing, and it's one of the most effective tools for managing anxiety and overwhelm. You're not suppressing your emotions, you're coaching yourself through them. It's like having a steady, supportive voice that stays with you, even when everything else feels unstable. That's not weakness, that's resilience. But this ability also comes with discomfort. Talking to yourself forces honesty. When you hear your own thoughts out loud, excuses lose their power. You might stop mid-sentence and realize that what you're saying isn't actually true, or that you're avoiding something important. Most people live in denial because their thoughts stay hidden and unchallenged. Yours don't. You constantly fact-check your own narrative. That makes growth faster, but it also makes self-reflection uncomfortable. And that discomfort is exactly why it works. Over time, this habit builds something rare, inner authority. When you regularly talk things through with yourself, you learn to trust your own judgment. You don't rely on constant validation from others. You listen to advice, but you decide for yourself. In a world obsessed with approval, this kind of independence is powerful. You're not easily swayed by trends, pressure, or other people's opinions. You know what feels right for you, and you're willing to stand by it. But here's the part most people don't talk about. Talking to yourself only stays powerful if it leads to action. Otherwise, it turns into mental looping. When used correctly, self-talk creates focus. Studies show that talking yourself through tasks dramatically improves performance. High performers across every field do this. When you say things like, finish this part first, or then move to the next step, you're giving your brain a roadmap. You're not waiting for motivation. You're creating momentum. That's why you can often push through tasks others abandon. Self-talk also unlocks creativity. When you think out loud, you explore ideas freely. You test possibilities, ask what-if questions, and approach problems from angles silent thinking rarely reaches. Psychologists call this exploratory speech. It's messy and nonlinear, but it's where original ideas are born. Silent thinking follows rules. Spoken thinking breaks them. And that's why people who talk to themselves often come up with insights that feel intuitive but powerful. So, if you talk to yourself every day, you're not strange. You're self-aware, resilient.